Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Megan Roberts. We begin in the Northwest Territories, where fire activity seems to have slowed down. There have been no new fires reported over the last 3 days. So far, there have been 13 this year. 5 have been declared out and 8 continue to burn. Some rain helped out in Fort Liard, but the fire burning nearby is still classified as out of control. Let's take a look now at the latest on that and some of the other fires around the NWT. So, the Fort Liard fire, currently 873 hectares. NWT Fire says it has not grown meaningfully since yesterday. There are 5 fire crews and 3 helicopters working on it now, and it remains 19 kilometers southwest of Fort Liard. The fire 40 kilometers south of Fort Simpson near Checkpoint on Highway 1 is 22 hectares. Water bombers made some drops yesterday and crews are continuing their work along the highway. Crews are also working around the Alberta border where a fire continues to burn. Alberta Wildfires says it is a human-caused fire. 55 Alberta firefighters alongside 8 helicopters are working to protect infrastructure and contain that fire. So far this year, 2,443 hectares of forest have burned in the NWT. Further south in Alberta, more than 6,000 people remain out of their homes as firefighters battle an out-of-control wildfire near Fort McMurray. But rain, cooler temperatures, and calmer winds are giving the crews an assist. Julia Wong has the latest.
There is some cautious optimism from officials about the wildfire that's threatening Fort McMurray. As of Thursday morning, the fire was about 20,000 hectares, and it remains mere kilometers from the community. There are 172 firefighters, 22 helicopters, and 57 pieces of heavy equipment that are working to try and tackle the flames. Officials say that this fire will take time, it will take work to put out because of the size and scope of this fire, but also because of how dry conditions have been. Now, the area has been getting some rain and more is expected in the coming days. Crews will need a lot more to put out those flames completely, but they say this is a good start.
We're graced with Mother Nature's kindness here today. We'll take as much rain as we can get on the fire. Obviously, it will have a positive impact versus what we had witnessed a few days prior.
It's good to hear. Yeah, it means that we'll be able to get home sooner than later.
Officials say that evacuees should be prepared to stay away from the community until next Tuesday at the earliest. They say they don't want to bring people back in, only to have the flames flare up again and have to evacuate people a second time. Julia Wong, CBC News, Lac La Biche, Alberta.
Let's take a look now at the fire situation around other parts of Canada, starting in northeastern British Columbia. Officials say the wildfire threatening Fort Nelson is now spreading to the south and away from town. The massive fire has grown to almost 130 square kilometers. All of Fort Nelson's 4,700 residents remain under an evacuation order. BC Wildfire says cooler temperatures and higher humidity are expected to help the firefighting effort over the next couple of days. And in Manitoba, about 500 people remain out of the small northwestern community of Cranberry Portage. Officials say the wildfire there was about 80% contained and that residents might be able to return this weekend. The early and intense start to the wildfire season in Western Canada has many concerned about air quality. Last year, Environment Canada issued a record number of air quality alerts. Now, the parents of a BC boy who died last summer of asthma exacerbated by smoke are speaking out about the deadly danger it can create and the need for better monitoring. Georgie Smythe has that story.
BC's wildfire season has begun, and while there's no wildfire smoke in this South Caribou community yet, people here want to be proactive about monitoring the area's air quality. Knowing what pollutants are being carried into town by fire and smoke is especially important to Amber and James Vi. They lost their 9-year-old son Carter last July to a severe asthma attack, which his parents say was brought on by wildfire smoke.
When I carried him out to the truck, when we decided he was going to the hospital, he kind of looked up at me and said, "No, I don't like the feeling of this." And that's kind of stuck with me, like, because this wasn't new, really. Like, we've been dealing with his asthma for so long that I feel like he knew that there was something else in the air that day.
That night Carter died. His cause of death was listed as a severe asthma attack exacerbated by wildfire smoke. But his parents say his death might have been avoided if their town had better air quality monitors. While they do exist around BC, the closest one to this town is nearly 100 kilometres away. The Vise want to change that. So with the BC Lung Foundation, they've brought in air quality monitors and have shown the community, including Carter's former classmates, how to build their own air filters. After Carter's death last year, people here are anxious at the thought of more fires and smoke.
We're ready to leave if we have to, but I also have to think about the smoke. And that's what I worry about all the time.
Every year it's just getting worse and worse, and hearing about Carter last summer was shocking. We have kids the same age.
It's going to be, from the looks of things, a very bad, difficult summer, even if we don't, say, get burnt out ourselves.
Wildfire smoke is a problem for the whole country. Fire seasons are getting longer, so smoky skies and poor air quality are persisting for longer too. Places like Toronto, Ottawa, New York and DC were blanketed with smoke last summer from fires hundreds of kilometres away.
That particulate matter is so small that it can get into your lungs and right through your lung lining and into your bloodstream. So it can cause a lot of short-term impacts, a lot of long-term impacts, and especially if you are living with some sort of lung disease like asthma or COPD, it can have some pretty tragic implications pretty quickly.
With wildfires already burning in BC's north, people are anxious to get ready for the fire and smoke that's become inevitable here in the summer. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, 100 Mile House.
After 8 years, the federal government plans to part ways with its employee payment system, Phoenix. Since it launched in 2016, it's caused a number of pay issues for thousands of public servants and cost taxpayers nearly $4 billion. Now, the government is committing to make a change to the system. Celeste DeCare reports.
The federal government says Phoenix, its plagued civil service pay system, is on its way out. Eventually, a software company called Dayforce will replace it, but it's not clear when.
I think it's a little bit too early to ask. I think if we ask me that at this time next year, we'll be in a position to answer that question clearly.
What is clear is that it's time for a change, for several reasons. For one, the current software system will likely become obsolete in the next decade, which is putting pressure on the federal government to make the switch.
The supplier of Phoenix itself is saying that over the years, the technology that we're on will probably be sunset. So one way or another, we are on a sinking ship from a technological perspective.
Phoenix has also been the target of criticism from civil servants for years. It's failed to pay workers on time or the right amount, and issues are still outstanding. Julia Pama works for Indigenous Service Canada. She was promoted last July, and her new role included a raise that she says she still hasn't seen.
So I switched from a different department into this department, and I went up effectively 2 levels, which is a significant sum, a significant salary for someone like myself. I have yet to receive any of that salary increase.
Pama says the pay bump she's been waiting on would mean that she could drop her 2 other part-time jobs. Her hope is that the feds get it right with this new system.
And as much time as it takes, that's okay, as long as we do the research that we need to do, as long as the potential issues are found and the risks are mitigated so that it doesn't have that huge, huge negative impact on people's livelihoods when it is rolled out.
Pama's case doesn't stand alone. According to the government's latest numbers, more than 300,000 out of 425,000 Phoenix transactions failed to meet service standards, and 213,000 transactions were more than a year late.
It's been 8 years that we've been living with the Phoenix pay system, and the problems are quite intense. Can you imagine making the decision of whether or not you're going to pay your rent or buy food because your paycheck didn't come in?
The federal government has set aside $135 million in this year's budget to help develop Dayforce. They say the transition to the new system will happen gradually and expect to implement it in the next few years. Celeste DeCare, CBC News, Ottawa.
Whitehorse might be getting more electoral districts, while communities in the Yukon might lose some. Currently, there are 11 districts in Whitehorse and 8 outside of the city. A new proposal is suggesting that 2 be added to Whitehorse and 2 be taken away from the communities. The proposed changes come in an interim report by the Electoral District Boundaries Commission.
The main reason for that is because of growth in Whitehorse, population growth in Whitehorse. The last commission that proposed boundary changes was in 2008. So we've been working with the same electoral boundary districts since 2008, and there's been a huge population growth between 2008 and now, and most of it has been in Whitehorse.
Public hearings will be held in 12 communities between May 22nd and June 17th about the proposed electoral boundary changes. Narwhals have officially been downgraded to a species that is not at risk of extinction. The narwhal was previously listed as a species of special concern. The Committee on the Status of Endangered Wildlife in Canada made the announcement yesterday. There are now roughly 160,000 narwhals in northern Canadian waters, and that contributed to the decision.
In some areas, it was conflictual, perhaps, is one way to put it, because in some areas, well, numbers are increasing, they look to be in good shape. In other areas, well, it looks like we're seeing some skinny animals, but overall, it seemed to be also supporting the decision for not at risk.
Hamill says reviews of endangered species take place at least every 5 years. The timing depends on whether there are factors that are affecting populations. Environment and Climate Change Canada must also approve the designation. A project is underway to help support food sovereignty for Inuit. That includes having the right to decide what people eat and how they get their food. The CBC's Mahnor Mubarak has more.
It's called Inuksutit, Food Sovereignty in Nunavut and the co-production of country food knowledge. Nunavut youth learn how to film elders preparing traditional food and create an online database of those videos. Jessica Penny is a researcher with the project. She says, historically, many elders and people in Inuit communities didn't have the choice of what they wanted to eat in the past because of residential schools.
This project is really, in a way, elders leading the research to decide what is important for young people to learn to have access to healthy and nutritious country food.
The project focuses on Pond Inlet and King 8 and is being led by Inuit elders, community researchers, and academics. Rhoda Katzak has made videos to help teach others and says the online database has a number of recipes.
Magda CEO, bearded CEO, how to prepare intestines and how to butcher the different joints, all sorts of interesting stuff.
The project also involves the creation of resources supporting food sovereignty and is expected to run until 2025. Mahnor Mubarak, CBC News, Iqaluit.
A downed plane was retrieved from the ice near Rankin Inlet yesterday. A helicopter carried the Kudlik airplane to the community's airport. The single-engine PC-12 was en route from Chesterfield Inlet to Quebec City with a fuel stop in Rankin Inlet last Tuesday when the pilot was forced to make an emergency landing on the ice about 9 kilometers southeast of Rankin. The 2 pilots and 1 passenger were unharmed in the crash. They were picked up by search and rescue volunteers and the RCMP. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada is investigating the cause of the crash.
Hi, I'm Vanessa.
Vanessa likes gymnastics. She loves soccer. She loves to ride her bike. She loves to stay at the park as long as she can. She shows me every day that she can do anything she puts her mind to. The WARAMPS is able to provide Vanessa with the devices and support that she needs because of the generosity of the public. Nothing will stop her. Any help that she ever needs is right there because of your generosity.
Thank you!
King aliwaling mulu pangolo asyang miu muna toy mo ina daily takpang kimuk sa palilok sa mga tayo mabuhat taling ni pilariulok sa mga Inuit amichwalu walang mata.
When we see Team Canada on the world stage,
We're witnessing pure greatness. What we don't see is their struggle. We don't see Maggie McNeil navigating her anxiety, Shea Gilgis-Alexander getting cut from his high school team, or Ellie Black hearing she's just too old to compete. What we don't see makes us who we are. We're all bravely facing the odds in our lives, and our bravery is our victory.
Everyone listen up.
Bursting with labor.
All these guys 21?
Nunavut is getting more money for childcare spaces. Yesterday, the federal government announced a $10.9 million investment over 4 years for childcare centers across the territory. The federal minister of Families, Children and Social Development says the money is on top of the $66 million pledged in 2021.
The $10.9 million is in addition to that previous funding that had been announced, to really now focus on the challenge of investing in the infrastructure that's needed to either build new childcare centers or to expand on existing centers.
The original $66 million carried a promise to build 238 new childcare spaces by 2026. The government says $8 million will be spent over the next year and a half to honor that commitment. A dedicated Inuit women's shelter in Ottawa is one step closer to becoming a reality. Ottawa City Council unanimously voted on Wednesday to transfer city-owned vacant land to the Ottawa Aboriginal Coalition. It has plans for a 30-bed housing facility for Inuit women and children fleeing domestic violence. The plan faced opposition from some residents who cited safety concerns and said the facility would detract from the neighborhood. A possible opening date is slated for 2027. A new study suggests having more female physicians in operating rooms could result in improved patient outcomes. Canadian researchers wanted to explore the impact of sex diversity in operating room teams. They looked at the results of hundreds of thousands of elective surgeries over a 10-year period. Tashana Reid tells us what they found.
Published in the British Journal of Surgery, the study looked at a decade of administrative data at hospitals in Ontario for more than 700,000 patients who underwent major surgeries, including gastrointestinal, cardiac, and orthopedic. What they found was that hospitals with more than 35% female anesthetists and surgeons, there was a 3% reduction in major health complications, including death, within 3 months of surgery. The lead author of the study says the data suggests having more sex-balanced anesthesia and surgery teams leads to better outcomes for patients.
It's not only about equity and justice, it's really about increasing performance and providing better care, which is really what we should all strive towards. And I really hope that this is a good motivator for healthcare system and healthcare institutions to implement some changes to have well-balanced teams for the benefit of everybody.
While more women are entering medical schools, researchers say in the 10-year study period, the number of female anesthetists and surgeons only increased by 5%. And half of the hospitals included in the study had less than 35% women in those roles in 2019. This anesthesiologist says the research is important and raises even more questions.
When we're talking about diversity of teams and we're talking about how functional they are, what we also need to be thinking about is the power dynamics that are in that team and in that room. And so gender plays into that, race plays into that, the particular culture of that organization plays into that.
Researchers say more needs to be done not only around promotion and recruitment of women on surgical teams, but also retainment policies to ensure operating rooms are better balanced, which ultimately could lead to better health outcomes. Tashana Reid, CBC News, Toronto.
A young Calgary woman is in a race against time. She's searching for a kidney donor who shares her extremely rare blood type. Jennifer Lee has her story.
A healthy diet is a priority for 20-year-old Sana Ashuri. A rare disease has left her with just 30% kidney function.
It doesn't have a cure with medication, so the main
thing that can help me is a transplant or dialysis.
Hospital visits are part of life now. Doctors have told Ashuri to start looking for a live donor before she's added to the transplant list because she also has an extremely rare blood type. A kidney from someone with the same Bombay blood group reduces the risk her body will reject the organ.
Sometimes you can just think about like, oh, what if I don't find a donor? Or what if I do find one and then it's not really a compatible match with my blood type and then rejection happens. And that whole process is very scary to think about.
The best option for finding a compatible match is looking within her own ethnic population first. So South Asian, Afghani folks, other people from that region.
Sana's story highlights the importance of diversity in Canada's donor pool. Sidhu says about 1 in a million people of European descent have the Bombay blood type, compared to about 1 in 10,000 people from India.
Depending on the community and access to information or language barriers, other things, that can always pose a challenge. That's why it's always more successful when we have community members try to create community awareness.
No one in Sana's family, originally from Afghanistan, is a match. Her mom says they're working to raise awareness about live kidney donation within South Asian communities as they scour the country for a donor who can help.
As a mother, I'm asking as a human. So come forward, we start with the testing so it can change my daughter's life.
It would be a really good blessing because, like I said, kidneys are a vital organ. Without them, I cannot live. And so having a donor would mean that it's basically saving a life.
Jennifer Lee, CBC News, Calgary.
The number of people dying from cancer in Canada is dropping, and more people are surviving for decades after their diagnosis. But projections reported in the latest Canadian Medical Association journal indicate the number of cases and deaths are likely to rise because of an aging and growing population. Christine Birak looks at where progress is being made and where work still needs to be done.
These latest estimates show cancer is still the biggest killer of Canadians, but the rates, so the actual likelihood of being diagnosed with or dying from cancer, are expected to decline this year for both men and women. And here's why. Stop smoking programs and policies are paying off. Lung cancer cases and deaths are dropping. And researchers say they're now catching more breast and colorectal cancers.
A lot of the gains that we've seen are because of effective early and efficient diagnoses of cancer. So screening, for example, works because people are diagnosed at the earliest stage they can find the disease. Even for cancers without organized screening programs, early diagnosis, early detection, and then early initiation of care leads to improved outcomes.
Which is why some argue the average breast cancer screening age should be lowered to 40. At the same time, emergency room doctors are raising alarm bells. They say the ER is no place to be told you have cancer, and yet it's becoming routine.
I've never really met this person before. I may have spent only 10-15 minutes, and now I'm giving them a life-altering diagnosis.
ER docs say cancers caught here are often later stage. Patients are usually older, lower income, and have lower chances of survival. The big problem is most patients diagnosed in hospitals do not have a family doctor to oversee or guide their care.
It's devastating for the patients. Oftentimes, if they can be sent home, they leave with a lot of uncertainties. They don't know what the next steps in care will be.
Right now, about 1 in 5 Canadians don't have a family doctor. Physicians we spoke with worry that some of the gains that have been made in cancer prevention, screening, and treatment could be lost due to a lack of access to family doctors. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
A small Whitehorse landmark is staying put. During COVID, galleries, libraries, and other public spaces were shut down. So, local artist Nicole Bauberger came up with a creative solution, the Trail Gallery. Over the years, the artist changed with the seasons, but A few weeks ago, it looked like the gallery would be closing permanently when Bauberger received a ticket from a city bylaw officer.
It didn't feel particularly nice. I mean, a threat of a fine or the removal of my artwork by city workers at my expense was, not the kind of award one hopes for.
After a local petition and several meetings with the city, Bauberger was able to come to a compromise. Parts of the trail will be seasonal, and a piece on reconciliation will stay. Cash prizes were up for grabs in Inuvik NWT yesterday as the second annual territorial spelling bee took place. The CBC's Des Loreen was there.
Resign. R-E-S-I-G-N. Resign.
Correct. Spelling words, gaining public speaking skills, and taking home some hard-earned cash.
Right now we got the territorial spelling bee, people from Wati, Yellowknife, Forked Hope, Polituck. We're spelling words, winning some money, having some pride in self-advocacy.
19 students from across the territory put on a show at East 3 Secondary School in Inuvik. And they were challenged with words like reservoir, knoll, and barbiturate. One proud mom flew in from Polituck to support her son.
Z-E-B-R-A, zebra.
Correct.
His first time here in Inuvik since he was a baby, but this is his first school trip ever, so I'm here to support him and encourage him.
And it was well worth the trip, taking home second place in his category.
I feel very proud. Winning second place is just as good as winning first. He prepared himself very well last night. Before he went to bed, I told him that he'd best to study before bed. That way he can remember words and phrases.
Organizers want the participants to leave with more than just better spelling and grammar.
Can I get the definition?
It is. Oh gosh, I mean, one of the things that we're really pushing is students to have a voice, students to feel confident, and to stand up and put yourself on the line and force yourself to ask questions, force yourself to spell words that could be hard. That's not easy.
In the end, 3 students each won $1,000 for winning their category. Des Loreen, CBC News, Inuvik.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
You don't scare me.
Look out! Ain't nobody gonna stop me.
We have a new world record.
Oh my God.
We're a team.
No!
We fight the best we can.
Q with Tom Power. Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.